Welcome into my morning meditation space. I'm Kelsey, and this is the tarot version of Cultivating Consciousness. And, well, most mornings I start off my day with some sort of meditative space, and recently I've decided to open it up onto this platform and just start talking, sharing whatever comes through. Now, I've had a lot on my mind lately, and over the last 3 years, maybe a little bit longer, I've done some intense meditations on the throat chakra, communication, speaking my truth, figuring out who I am, where I belong in the world, all that fun stuff. So, right now where I'm at in the world, it's very windy outside. We have a winter storm rolling in. We're expecting some snowstorms in the next couple of days. It's a little rainy right now. Windy, very windy, a little rainy. But I'm in the desert, and the rain in the desert is one of my favorite smells. The dust and the sage, and just the smell of rain. The smell of rain and sage is a wonderful combination. And if you've never found yourself in the desert, it does have its own unique beauty and its own unique charm. Subtle colors, lots of pastels, gorgeous sunsets here. I mean, the colors are just phenomenal. And you think off the top of your head, or you would think that a desert would be barren and dry and brown, and if you're not adapted to it, it looks like that at first. But once you adapt and your eyes adjust to the frequencies of the desert, you begin to notice a lot more subtle differences, and it doesn't look so brown. The deck that I'm pulling out of is the Uncommon Tarot, and I pulled from this last week and sat with the reading from last week all week and decided it's just not the reading to post. It gave me a lot to think about, and one of the topics that's been on my mind a lot is intersectionality. This is the Six of Wands, man on his camel in the desert, seeking spiritual connection, purpose, finding the oasis in the desert, finding the little bits of nurturing that come from these somewhat desolate seeming spaces. And six to me is often love. Wands is manifesting love, manifesting something out of nothing. Ultimately, I feel like is what a lot of this is. And I think the reason intersectionality keeps coming up for me, because again, in trying to figure out where I belong in all of this, I don't know, I think when we're getting to know ourselves and establishing a sense of self-consciousness and realm of cultivating our own idea of what consciousness means or is, I feel like the feedback that I get from people are these narrow ideas or narrow concepts, limited beliefs based on a person's own experiences and perceptions, and I don't know, I'm a white woman in a minivan with a little dog, and I think already that conjures up some ideas in people's minds, you know. And I think when we take looks at people and we react with whatever comes up first, right, then we're interacting with people and forming these relationships on rather subconscious or unconscious basis, ultimately just separating and dividing people. And if we don't acknowledge the aspects of ourselves that ride along the edges or along the fringes, then we contain ourselves in these boxes, or we lock ourselves into these modalities of viewing ourselves, which again can be very, very limiting. But I think it also helps to serve a function of balancing things out for people. This is justice. I don't know. I've never really fit into a space, but I've always found that in my life I've been able to connect with people from all different types of backgrounds and all different types of groups, and I've had many different cultures inform my own. And I think it's tough because I grew up in a really small town in a very whitewashed environment, where like the foundation of my culture is built on white people coming in and just demolishing the native cultures, especially of the native tribes around here. And I've just always been curious or fascinated by our history because it informs so much of how things are now. And so I come from a lineage of people, not necessarily from my own family, because I'm not too familiar with my family. I know on my maternal side, it's primarily like Northern European, like quite a mutt in it. And then on my dad's side is Bohemian and Blackfoot. So these are very different types of cultures coming together, melding, and then making me, or people like me. And then growing up in a little tiny mining town, our history, it's full of oppression. We've come in, white man has come in and oppressed the culture of the red man, has brought in the yellow man and has not only taken from him his culture, but enslaved him to build up an infrastructure for a culture that affects us all now. And where I'm at, there's not a whole lot of history, like black history here. This was a state, or I grew up in a town close to close to another town. I can't think of the name off the top of my head. Just, I don't think I want the energy in my space, right? But sounding an alarm, right? In these small towns where these alarms or these bells go off, and if you're not home by a certain time, and if you're not of a certain color, you're punished. And then, even like white man to white man, this is gold mining country, silver mining country. People came out here with big hopes and big dreams, and many with this mentality of taking from the land, taking from other people, manipulation. I mean, it's amazing what people will do for gold or for wealth or for an ounce of something. And it's just, it's created an environment or an energetic system within this space specifically that is just charged with all this karmic energy or karmic history that must be healed and resolved and worked through. And in spaces like this in the desert, where there's these vortices and these energetic pockets, I believe our thoughts and our intentions become literal things much quicker because of the intensities. And it's a unique environment to be in. I mean, I'm situated between like volcanoes and fault lines. I'm in the midst of a rain shadow where all these different pieces have come together. And as shitty as the culture has been here, and as rough and difficult and as challenging, as oppressive as it has been, what I've noticed, especially these days, within the last 10 years, 5 years really, it's like a magnet or a pull for more diversity and more culture. And I find, as I talk to people, I mean, because the population here is boom, you know, we're well over 500,000 people, which is, you know, more than doubled in my lifetime. And it's neat to see a hodgepodge of cultures coming together in a new way, and I see opportunities for something new to be catalyzed and to be born out of all of this. And I like that this card came out because it came out in the last reading too, where there's a harmony and a unity and a bringing together of these different forces. 4 wands, right? And again, manifesting these things of love and harmony and overcoming these difficulties and these diversities. And I don't know, it's tricky, right? Like, how are we supposed to talk about all of these things? More wands, 8 wands. Taking in all the powers, the things that come through, moving things forward into something more unifying. I mean, there's progress, good news, travel, movement, overcoming these fears. We're progressing. It's a progressive environment, although some days I feel like we're definitely moving backwards. But it's a slow transition and a slow shift. Like, we're all cocooning together as a species, you know, and evolving as a species together. And we have these caterpillar aspects, or these caterpillar beings, maybe, you know, the sapient beings that are being met with an evolutionary luminous being. You know, we're breaking out of these sapient laws and tapping into our genetic code through a different energetic frequency that is giving us new understandings and tools to be able to overcome a lot of these difficulties. And I'm mesmerized and a little distracted right now because there's a rainbow right off to my left. Very, very near my home. You know, the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow is what's coming to mind as I'm having this discussion here. You know, again, looking for the gold and finding it, but it comes in through luck. And it's at the end of a light spectrum, you know, it's at the end of this defragmentation. Not exactly sure what that's supposed to mean. But celebration, victory, unbridled joy. There's a lot to celebrate when it comes to life and goodness and all of these things, and it's hard to remember that in our world right now because things are just so chaotic. Things are very heavy, they're shifting and they're changing, and when something dissolves or just when something breaks apart or breaks away, it's felt. I mean, there's a shift and it's uncomfortable, painful even. You know, we put all these labels on what pain is in the Tower card. You know, collectively, we have these existing structures that have governed these cliques of bodies. I don't want to call them tribes. Some tribes. I think I don't want to call it tribes because these governing bodies aren't in alignment with these native or tribal ideologies that are more in alignment and in sync with Mother Nature, spirituality, right? There's a disconnect between the material and the physical or the spiritual, and everything is compartmentalized into separation, you know, and if we can't lock something into a category or into this thing, then it's pushed out or it's outcasted or it's given a bad label or some sort of negative connotation that keeps it on the outskirts, that prevents anything closer to the center from changing or being different. But there's butterflies in all of this, and it's a grand collective metamorphosis that we're all emerging from. And I don't know, one of the topics that came out in the last reading when it comes to division and whatnot, because I know race right now is a hot topic and a big focus when it comes to unifying a collective, right? Because one of the most obvious things that identifies us to a specific culture, or could, right, would be the color of our skin or our looks. You know, we can get a sense for a history of a person based off their genetics, because we have a global understanding of how we all got here and how we all got to this point. You know, good, bad, and indifferent. It's been a challenge, and different races have had different challenges. Some same or similar, but I mean, they're all different. Every culture is different, so the experience for each person is going to be different. And I think it gets difficult from my perspective to talk about race, because outside of being white, I don't know. I have no firsthand or personal experience. And what I know of white people and white culture is we have a lot of work to do. You know, we've got a lot to resolve as a whole. There's a lot of growth and development that needs to happen and change. And it's not up to me, up to us to assimilate other cultures, to homogenize them, to make them similar, familiar to us, although we don't have to change and we don't have to grow. The homogeneity across the board sucks because it's washing out such a beautiful array of knowledge and creativity and art and music, and it eliminates the innovative potentials and capacities that every individual has, because for whatever reason there are powers or structures at B, right, that have invested a lot of their identity into the way things function. You know, there are a lot of people who depend on the system to work as it does to be able to meet their basic needs, because they're not taught outside of that how to get any of that. And I think the further we dive into race and into humanity, we can see one of the horrible things that unifies us all is and again, I'm going to be careful about how I say this, is about the oppressive nature towards women. We've lived in a patriarchy for a really long time. So much of our religions originally were founded through male lenses in a male world, because women served a different purpose perhaps at that point than they do now, right? We're not necessarily sure at what point in our history we decided, or men decided, that women were bad. But it's like there's been a battle in this growth and in this transformation. You know, I read something, I don't know, maybe early in the morning, late last night or something like that, along the lines of, man created religion for man because he doesn't have the direct connection to spirituality that a woman has, because a woman is a portal for new life to come through. There's this connection with the moon and this cleansing that happens every month, and there's a relationship with our bodies that is very different from a man, and a man doesn't understand this. You know, a woman's hormones and emotional body, they're so complex. They're so complex that it takes a willingness and curiosity and a desire to want to dive in to figure out how to make a world fit around this. And the crappiest thing about racism across the board is that it has divided women. Because I know with a lot of the work that I do, I'm an advocate for sexual assault survivors. And I do a lot of awareness work for domestic violence and things of that nature. And there's all this emphasis on, like, men hating women, you know, women hating men, men, you know, this, like, battle of the sexes. One of the ways that the battle of the sexes has played out is this divide between women. Which is, it's odd, because there's a lack of safety that women feel with men, say, walking around at night alone by yourself. Not probably a very good idea. But in the context of relationships, there's not friendships, right? There's not a threat to take something or to have something that somebody necessarily doesn't have. So those male-female relationships can feel somewhat safer. But these, like, female-female relationships get really complicated. Really, really complicated. You know, women can either be the best of friends and will maintain that friendship their whole lifetime. You know, they'll find groups of like-minded women or whatever that they can have these pods and these safety nets with, and this mirroring back of validation, support, security, you know, that sort of a thing. But if there's any sort of perception within the group of women that could potentially put one woman over another or create some sort of a hierarchy. You see women not being able to come together. Men can come together in a hierarchy and can fit a linear pattern and way of thinking. You know, we have an ultimate goal, we're going to go from here to there. You know, one man here, and there becomes like a chain of command in order to get from point A to point B. But women are not linear thinkers. We think in terms of a spider web, right? Where everything is interrelated and somehow interconnected. So if there is something that has a pull perhaps on one line of that web, I mean, it throws the whole thing off, and it throws the whole system off. And perhaps because women have been objectified for so long, we've been put in this space where, you know, we have to compete for a man's attention, or, you know, women aren't allowed to be outwardly aggressive or physical, so they become very underhanded and undermining. And I don't know, my experience with white women is they will be incredibly nice to your face and pretend to be your best friend, get all your deepest, darkest secrets, and then they'll turn around and like just come at you. You know, they'll just woo from behind. Like, where thought we were friends. And I can't speak to black women with black women in black culture. I only know my experiences with black women as a white woman, and black women with white women aren't malicious and underhanded. They're very blunt and straightforward. They're very strong. You know, they're held to different standards. And so what's the word I'm looking for? I don't want to call it like tenacity or personal authority. But they're held to a higher standard of themselves to be better people. They have to be fully accountable for who they are. You know, they not only, I know, they have to fight and struggle to get what white women have, because white women just take for granted the privileges that come with it in this environment that is catered to white people, you know, or white men. You know, so it's easy for a white female to play up this masculine part, to find her way in and to play the game and to, you know, succeed within this system. But it's not the same for black people. I mean, black people in general, brown people in general, you know, anybody who doesn't fit this norm, you know, and who isn't willing to compromise their own culture to get into the homogeneity to necessarily fit in, to thrive within this system. You know, let's see, let's pull some more cards. Two Cups is on the outside, on the top. This was on the last one too, you know, so it's bringing together different forces, and keeping your eye on the golden lion came out. And here again is this lion and the sense of bravery. And what I think is important to note between these two within the cards, cups have to do with emotions, right? But each of these persons is carrying their own emotional cup. They're doing their own work. They're doing their own emotional labor. One of my favorite concepts and favorite terms that has really come forward through the Black Lives Matter is this idea of emotional labor, right? It's not my job, it's not anybody's job or duty to do the emotional labor to resolve some of these issues that have come through. Like, it's just not. And I think it's difficult for women who have natural tendencies to emotionally labor, to do the laborious work of experiencing and feeling the emotions and doing the nurturing and going through that. It's a lot of work. It takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of time. Seven Swords, there's a lot of resolving of conflict that has to come through. There's a lot of navigating, again, these subtle bodies and being able to discern all of these different emotions and all of these different energies, right, for the good of the family, the good of the nucleus, the good of the collective in the long run. I mean, if we think of the archetype for the Mother Nature, it's about nurturing and supporting and feeding and providing experiences that grow and shape the living beings within so that things can evolve. This ongoing evolutionary principle that happens. But what prevents it? What are the other forces that come into play, right? Because there's, again, within the spectrum of light and dark, there's a polarizing aspect that happens. There's this current that connects these two polar opposites, from black to white to everything in between, from male to female to everything in between, to all these different intersections, right? These crossing of these different barriers that have come together. I mean, if anything, in this world of globalization, or for persons like me or similar to me, where there's not a clear genetic history to follow, it's like, well, who am I and where do I come from? Where is my family? Who are these people? And on my father's side, outside of my grandparents, I suppose, I don't even know my grandparents. I met my grandfather once, never met my grandmother. I don't know who my family is. Some of them I've met long time ago, but I don't know where we come from. I don't know how we got here. I don't know how a bohemian romance unfolded with a Blackfoot, other than just this American story of people migrating and mixing. People wanting to leave a culture that exists, or to leave an aspect of history to create something new for the future. There are a lot of stories like that. There are a lot of people who come from different types of backgrounds. I mean, talk about somebody who's black, white, Chinese, and brown all mixed into one, and intersectionality and identity, and how these people come together, or how they would experience the world, because they would experience the world in a very diverse way, because different types of people are treating them in different types of ways and telling them, that they're all these different types of things, and they have to figure out how to fit or mold or what all that means consciously within. And that inner discernment, I mean, we're all kind of like walking around in the dark trying to figure out how to create peace and harmony for everything, everybody. Maybe not everybody roaming around in the dark wants peace and harmony. There are a lot of people who want the exact opposite. There's a lot of destructive forces at play. I don't know, this card keeps popping out. Two Swords, right? And she came up again. But again, learning how to discern all of these different things. But if we can close our eyes, if we can take out our vision, right? What we see conditions what we think and how we perceive the world. So if we can shut our eyes and use other senses, extrasensory senses, senses beyond our normal senses, to tap into these ethereal energetic fields, into that subtle body, we can cut through the bullshit. We can stay on top of the emotional stuff. We can ride through all of these different emotional changes and the way things go. But we have to cut out our visual judgments and lead with the heart and follow with the heart while also protecting it. And it's a lot of work and it's a lot of effort, and I think a lot of people just don't want to do it. I don't know. So in the book, I like reading the artist's interpretation of the cards for the book, right? If they're going to take the time to make the cards and create the images and write the words go with the images. I don't know. There's some people are like, you have to go to the book, you don't know what you're doing. I don't know. Tarot cards came to me. My great-grandmother on my mother's side, my maternal great-grandmother, was also a tarot card reader. She was an artist. Very progressive for her day and age. I think she, married 7 times. A successful businesswoman. And somewhere in my early 20s, a friend, acquaintance, gave me a deck of tarot cards, and she told me she bought them for herself years and years ago because she wanted to be a tarot card reader, and somebody had told her, if you're a true tarot card reader, then your first deck is given to you. You don't just go out and buy it and decide you're going to read tarot because you want to. So I approached this space and this tool with great reverence. I've formed a relationship with it that is my own. It's a tool for me that gives me this sense of balance, so I can carry my own shit and do my own work, and then help provide these tools and these things for others. As I go forward with these channelings, I'll get more into myself and what I do and all of these things. I don't want to sidetrack and go off on tangents. I have a tendency to do that, especially when my channels are open and things are just flowing through. There's a lot of people in the world to tap into. But I think the point of it all, kind of for today, at least in today's morning meditation space, cultivating consciousness for myself, considering where I sit in these intersections and all these different precipices as things change, I have a unique perspective. I have a very big picture lens, not so much a narrow focus. I don't know, maybe that's why I'm being called to share some of this stuff. Share away, they say, the guides, they talk. Extrasensory things. Let's see, I know. Another card that came up from last time. Preventing people from evolving or stepping into these new things, right? Holding on to these material ideologies or hoarding these certain concepts and things, wanting to stay on the ground and to get grounded, not wanting to stand up and not wanting to elevate themselves or other people. This is a very protective nature. There's kind of a crumbled building in the background as everything has begun to shift, so as one thing to be mindful of as people are perceiving the material loss crumbling around them, they're going to do whatever they can to hold on to things as they are, as they exist. Even in this cocooning state, we have these caterpillar cells. You know, when you have these butterfly cells that start coming in, there's like a battle royale that happens, and these caterpillar cells are like, invaders, something new, what is this, I don't know, it's foreign. At our base cellular level, right, if something invades the cell, or a foreign body invades the cell, defense is seems like the first response. You know, filter out, get anything out that could be toxic. So anything new coming into this cellular body is perceived as a threat. Ultimately, it threatens the substance as it was before. You know, it's no longer going to be a caterpillar. Not because the caterpillar is bad or because there's anything wrong with this caterpillar, right? It's part of the process. It's part of the transformation. As things are growing and evolving and going through this, from a level of consciousness, when we're a caterpillar and we exist at a ground level for so long, right? Our feet, arms, hands are connected to this physical world. We're attached to it. We're attached to the sensations that come through the feelings of the security of the meat suit, right? You have this energetic spiritual form that has no container, this essence that's just kind of free flowing, that is consolidated into a meat suit of some sort, whether it be a caterpillar, right? But in its coding and in its genetics and its process, ultimately, if the caterpillar survives long enough and it grows big enough and it consumes enough, right, it begins to change and it begins to transform. All these little invader caterpillar cells, eventually, they win out. You know, they begin to solidify and they begin to form a new structure. All this goopity whatever becomes a new form and a new way of experiencing the world, right? So from the level of consciousness, after it goes from this sapient, material, physical, connected, holding on to mindset, to this goopy, dissolved, who am I, what form, formless, vulnerable mush, right? These two different the intersections of caterpillar, butterfly, goopy, all this, whatever, who am I, what am I supposed to do, what am I supposed to be? There's no control. All you can do is succumb and then become and then evolve into the new form, and then the new level of consciousness that comes from that, or that has grown from that, born from that, is one that can come down and find a security within the physical world, on the physical plane, but it also can spread its wings and it can float in the ethers. It learns it is supported not by nothing, the air is not nothing, by smaller molecules and other sense of vibration, so it can lift itself up out of the trees, away from the leaves, and it's no longer seeing a leaf for right here as food. It gets a bigger picture version of the whole tree, of the whole forest, and it no longer needs the leaves for food, right? It's looking for leaves so that it can lay its eggs, right? Because the next part of the process, after you've evolved, after you've transformed, is to plant the seed for the next generation. And when a butterfly lays an egg, it doesn't lay butterfly eggs. It lays caterpillar eggs. It gives birth to a sapient ideology that must go through its own personal transformation to come to its own elevated idea of what perception can be. You can't make another person change. You can't force another person to evolve and to become a butterfly when they're a caterpillar. You just can't. You can't reach inside of the cocoon and rush the process and make it come through any quicker. The only person you can change, or you can consciously transform or experience change through, as is yourself, through this personal transformation. If you want to see a change in the world outside around you, you don't go and try and change other people. You don't assimilate other people's cultures to try and change yourself from the outside in. It doesn't work. You work from the inside out. Recognize yourself as a cocoon, and then do the work that you need to evolve as a luminous being. Get out of these sapient ideologies that are blinded by these physical sensations and the meat suit as we know it, and open yourself up to something much bigger. A Knight of Wands, stepping into the new phase of manifestation, right? Knowing consciously that you are a co-creator, shaper of the reality, and the perception that you have in your brain is the reason why the world is the way that it is. Your brain, my brain, because collectively, when we combine our brains together, we've agreed that this is the way reality is. And I think for the most part, for those of us who aren't on top, so to speak, anybody suppressed or anybody who's had to suffer, knows this is not collectively the way everybody wants it to be. This is not a healthy way of living. Even the dog agrees. We'll wrap this up because we're getting close to an hour. And it's windy. I don't know if you can hear it or not. You can see all the clouds behind me and the desert behind me. It's beautiful, isn't it? My rainbow's disappeared. Let's see here. So what we cannot do is run away from our problems, cannot be emotionally unavailable, cannot lack courage, no coy behavior, there's no playing timid in the face of danger. We're not going to shy away from doing the hard, difficult work. We're going to be brave, we're going to stand in our power, and we're going to do our own emotional labor, and we're going to work through our processes instead of putting that emotional labor onto somebody else to fix something for us. You know? And I've come to a lot of these really strong belief systems, surviving some pretty messed up traumas. You know, my life has not been easy. And I get the sense that some people, when they look at me from the outside or just from like the facade of social media, they get this idea that I don't know what it's like to struggle, or what it's like to be depressed, or to have anxiety, or to have somebody violate my boundaries, you know, or like, I get people that look at me where, you know, well, if I were you, then I would do this and blah, 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 and my life would be all this. I don't understand why your life is, or why you have complaints, or why you think things are so hard. You know, if I were you, I would blah, 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 blah. How many times has somebody told you that they could live your life better than you can? You want to be in my shoes? I don't. Maybe on some soul level or whatever, sure. I chose this body, I chose this life, I chose all of these experiences to have for whatever growth, purpose, reasons. If I can empower myself with that, sure. If I chose to create these experiences for myself, what am I supposed to learn from it? Well, when you learn something, it's helpful to share it with other people so that they can learn too. I know I'm somewhere in the intersection, somewhere in the middle. I'm not any extreme on any form or another. But I'm hoping this is at least relatable enough to anybody to feel the current, to feel a current connection. One that is evolutionary, one that is mutually sustaining, mutually supportive. This is what I strive for. I strive to be in this mentality where energetically I can be in this state of peace and calm and self-awareness, presentness, currentness, in the now. To not be so triggered and reactive of my past experiences or of all these things, to not get all my own shit worked up and projected into all the other stuff. And it gets easier. It's gotten a lot easier over time. Easier for me, maybe, but it's not always easy for other people to receive. Again, when you're blunt and direct and straightforward and not coy and not trying to like pussyfoot around these difficult ideas, when you're coming at something full force, it can be received in a rather negative way. And so I don't know, I like when people are straightforward. I like when people are honest. I like when we can get to the point and do the work, you know, so we're not wasting any time. I don't have a whole lot of time on this earth, you know, and I've spent like the first 3 decades of my life trying to get off this earth and wanting to get off of this planet because it's just so freaking hard. But I don't want off. I don't want out of here. I like the beauty. I like these moments of celebration. Right? The unbridled adventure. I'm a restless spirit. Giving tarot card readings in my van. I don't know. I'm talking about all kinds of random stuff. But I'm loyal. I'm loyal and I'm honest, and when I commit to something, man, I'm locked in, and there's no turning back. When I make up my mind and my heart is set on something, I mean, it's locked in. What else? Go where you've never gone before. Take inspired action. Be committed to the cause. I'm definitely committed to the cause of doing the good work. I'm doing what I can to get out of my head, and get out of my feelings, and to take action. It's a theme that's come up in a couple of different ways from a couple of different perspectives. Take the action, do the work, dive in. I want to go somewhere I've never gone before. I want to live a life that people have never lived before. I want to build something that has never been built before. I want my home to be unique and like a home has never been before. I'm not content in the world as it is. I don't like it. And I can't change other people, you know? It's not necessarily that I want to change the world, but I want to change myself. I've always liked changing myself. I like transforming. I got a master's in transformative leadership. I know what it's like to lose everything and to have to start over. I've had to do it 4 times, 5 times, a few times. You know, I know what it's like being at the bottom. I have an idea of what it's like to be on top, based on my privileges and just based on just any given qualities that would in this society give me an advantage over somebody else. But I don't know what it's like to thrive. I don't know what it's like to have wealth. I don't know what it's like to be able to go and buy and go anywhere at any point in time. I mean, kind of, but I've come about it in a roundabout way. By giving in to faith, trust, coming to me, accepting me, radically accepting who I am in this body, in this lifetime. I don't know, like, we have a lot more work to do. I got a lot more work to do. I've done a lot of work. I'm ready to share what I've learned. So I'm gonna keep going with these. One more card for the road. One more card to keep in mind. Something to close off this space and to close off this energy. Some sort of North Star for our collective. Where are we going? If we're going somewhere new, we can't just walk around blindly in the dark. We have to have a North Star. Look at all her stars. Look how happy she is. She's got it all in her hands. She knows that there's different ways. There's a trust and a faith in this just, knowing we're stardust. We're beings made up of stardust. When you really begin to think about just how miraculous life in general is, you begin to take in the beauties of some of the most mundane things like dirt, rocks, sagebrush. You realize we're all one and the same. There's no difference. You know, you get absorbed in just the feelings of life and being, right? But coins, we're trying to materialize something infinite. Rewards, pride, abundance, recognition. I like this. This is, I think, something that we can all strive for. Because when we're not being sloppy, when the craftsmanship isn't shit, shoddy is the word that's used here. If you're not doing something only for the money or for the fame and the fortune, if you're doing something for the fame and the fortune, I think you've completely lost sight of what it means to feel love and creation and vitality, not just being alive. You know, if you don't care about the outcome, if you don't care what the North Star is, if you don't care where anybody else is going, I mean, you're not in your full power. This does nothing for the collective. This does nothing for you. It does nothing for anybody. Do a half-ass job. We live in a world of half-ass whatever, you know. If you live in a home that is built half-ass, it doesn't last long. We don't live in homes created with the architecture in mind that this is gonna still be here 100 years from now. You know? All this cookie cutter nonsense out here, all this homogeneity out here that's just been thrown together so everybody can feel a sense of normalcy or belonging. It just doesn't, it doesn't last. It all goes up in flames. You know how many forest fires there were around here the last 2 summers in a row? You know how much of California burnt down? Right on the edge of Nevada, California. Like this whole thing, just the boundary, the barrier, burning. Trees, homes, schools, churches, right down to the ground. Where's the security in that? The elements, Mother Nature, can come along at any point in time and take away that from you. Then what do you have? Who are you outside of the material things that you've created? Right? Because when this 8 coins is all powered up and in its best expression, right? This is the joy and pride that comes when all your hard work pays off. Really like all my hard work to pay off. It is slowly, but I know when it does pay off, that feeling of joy and pride is a North Star for me. Okay, Because I know if I keep going with this and I do the work, the right work, and I work really hard at it, it's gonna pay off. If this is really the right, true, good thing, it will pay off. Right? Recognition for a job well done. You're at the top of your game. Being on top doesn't mean having more than everybody else, but I like this idea of being on top of your game. Being on top of yourself. Being on top of your own shit. Right? Being your best self. On top of your game, and that you're connected to your highest self and living out your highest potential, doing your best and striving every day. Right? Well-deserved abundance. Just showing off your handiwork. This is difficult for me because I grew up in a family and an environment where you don't show off, right? You're not supposed to stand out. You're not supposed to draw attention to yourself. You're not supposed to make people uncomfortable. You know, you have to be homogenized. You have to be like everybody else. You can't whatever, because then you're this or then you're that, or you're egotistical or you're selfish, or there's all these horrible labels on it. And it's shitty because as much as I don't like attention and I just like being alone by myself doing my own little weirdo thing, when I do my own little weirdo things in front of other people, it draws attention. I'm an artist. I'm an expressive artist. I open my mouth, I walk into a room, or I do something or whatever, and because I'm on the fringes and not like anything else, it stands out or it draws attention, good or bad. It's been both. You know, but it's definitely made me very self-conscious, self-aware, but very conscientious. Not only of myself, but of other people and these subtle energies, you know. So when I walk into a room or a big crowd, I'm very attuned and very sensitive to everybody's affect. It's how I got into doing intuitive work and how I get into doing readings. I'm sensitive. Just sensitive. Just feel all of these things, right? And for me, because I feel all of these things and I have a difficult time discerning what's my feelings versus somebody else's feelings, right? Like getting all of this into control, getting this all contained in such a way where it can be consciously expressed in a way that makes people, well, I can't say that it makes people feel, because the work itself doesn't make people do anything. Well, maybe, I don't know. This is where we get into the realm of consciousness and creativity in the world and the intention and whatever that we put into stuff, right? But I mean, it's even like in videos. I'm coming to videos and doing this format, not really because I want to, but from a business sense, it makes sense. You know, again, I've heard a couple of times, oh, you know, I just go on videos. You know, I don't know, I just, like, really? I really want people looking at me? Look, I look all scrubby. You know, you put yourself out there, like, however. And again, back to the beginning of the reading, people's initial visual responses in these projections come out. If they sense anything in your energy that could possibly threaten the way that they are conscious or experience the world, oh my God, they're gonna nitpick at everything. Oh my God, look at her hair. Did you see what she's wearing? What's on the back? Like, really? You think I really care? I mean, I do, but I don't. I'm a pretty shy person. People are like, no, you're not. You're not shy. Well, kind of. I'm reserved. I don't know. When I'm alone in my own weirdo space, like, I get really creative. I dance, I sing. I'm very expressive and very colorful. And it's just not really something I feel comfortable doing in front of other people. But slowly, you know, over my lifetime, little bits of that inner weirdo has come out in different creative platforms. And it's looked like a lot of different things. You know, singing, performance art, nude modeling, playing human statue on a unicorn, putting myself and my body in these vulnerable, new, weird, expressive ways, not for the attention, for the alchemy, for the energetic alchemy. Arts and expression and creativity, all of that exists so we can alchemize all these difficult things and feelings that we experience. You know, I went through a lot of really hard stuff. So my therapy is physical expression. My therapy is being in my body and moving and dancing, or just feeling, expressing, putting on a weird hat, you know, walking around in a tutu, things that make me feel good. So I know, we'll talk more about all of that. But for now, stay on top of your game. Do your own emotional labor, the emotional work. Do your own shit, carry your own whatever, you know, go inside, do your own work. And you'll see the residual effects in the world around you. You'll see other people changing around you, and not because you're forcing them to change, but because you've made big changes. And if you make the right changes and other people are doing their own work and making their right changes, then partnerships will unify and things will come together as they should. You know, if I'm doing the work on me and doing my labor so I can show up and I can be the best, maybe one day the love of my life will come in. Maybe, you know, well, I'll get to step into that next phase of my life and go from there. But for now, from my single lady, lonely, whatever, pie hole, imaginary, meditative morning space in the ethers, I'd just be, feel, enjoy, and celebrate. Celebrate my life. Celebrate the fact that I'm alive. When I look back on it, there are a lot of points in my life where I could have been dead. Or I could have been left in a mental space way worse than this. But somehow, I've managed to overcome a whole lot of adversity. And I've managed to overcome these self-limiting beliefs and ideas of who I am. And I have watched myself accomplish and do things that I never thought I'd be able to do. So it's my gift to you. We'll keep sharing that. Okay, on that note, have a nice day. See you next time.